She walked into that conference room with her head held high, carrying a stack of carefully prepared reports that she'd spent the entire weekend perfecting. What she didn't know was that the next 15 minutes would change everything, not just for her, but for the arrogant manager sitting at the head of that table who was about to make the biggest mistake of his career. Because sometimes karma doesn't wait, and sometimes the person you underestimate is exactly the one who holds your future in their hands. Before we dive into what happened in that meeting room, let me know where you're watching this from. Are you tuning in from New York, London, Toronto, or somewhere else entirely? Drop your city in the comments because this story is reaching people all around the world, and honestly, what happened next proves that workplace discrimination isn't just one country's problem, it's everywhere. And it needs to stop. She had been working at Prestige Marketing Solutions for exactly 3 weeks when it happened. Her name was Maya Richardson, 23 years old, fresh out of Columbia University with a degree in business analytics and a fire in her belly to prove herself in the corporate world. She'd taken the internship position without telling anyone about her connection to the company. She wanted to earn respect on her own merit, not because of who her father was. Marcus Webb had been the regional marketing manager at Prestige for 7 years. He was the kind of man who wore expensive suits that couldn't quite hide his cheap attitude. Everyone knew Marcus ran his department like a fiefdom, and if you weren't part of his inner circle, which coincidentally consisted entirely of people who looked exactly like him, you were invisible at best and a target at worst. The morning of the incident started like any other Tuesday. Maya arrived at the office at 7:30, a full hour before most of her colleagues. She'd been assigned to compile a comprehensive market analysis report for a potential client, a major automotive company looking to rebrand their electric vehicle line. She'd poured everything into that report: research, data visualization, competitor analysis, consumer sentiment tracking. It was 53 pages of meticulous work. The weekly strategy meeting was scheduled for 9 o'clock. Maya had been told by her direct supervisor, Jennifer, that she'd be presenting her findings to the team. It would be her first real presentation, her first chance to show what she could do. She'd practiced her talking points a dozen times the night before. But when she entered the conference room, Marcus was already there, sitting in his usual spot at the head of the long glass table. He didn't look up when she entered. He was scrolling through his phone, his face fixed in that permanent expression of bored superiority that seemed to be his default setting. Other team members filtered in. There was Tom, the assistant manager who laughed at all of Marcus's jokes, whether they were funny or not. There was Stephanie, the senior analyst who'd learned that staying quiet was the best way to survive in Marcus's department. There was Derek, the creative director who kept his head down and his opinions to himself. And there was Jennifer, Maya's supervisor, who gave her an encouraging smile as she took her seat. Marcus finally looked up from his phone. His eyes swept across the room and landed on Maya. Something flickered across his face. Annoyance, maybe, or dismissal. "All right, people, let's make this quick," Marcus announced, tapping his pen against the table. "I've got a golf meeting at 11, and I'm not missing my tea time for another one of these sessions. Jennifer, you said you had something on the automotive pitch." Jennifer nodded. "Yes, Marcus. Maya has prepared a comprehensive analysis." "Maya," Marcus interrupted, his eyebrows raised. He looked directly at her for the first time, really looked at her, and his expression made something cold settle in her stomach. "The intern? You're telling me we're wasting meeting time on intern work?" Maya felt her pulse quicken. She kept her voice steady. "I've completed the full market analysis you requested. The data shows some really interesting patterns in consumer behavior that could help us position the pitch." "Let me stop you right there," Marcus said, holding up one hand. His tone had shifted into something that made everyone else in the room go still. "I don't know what they taught you at whatever school you went to, but here's how things work in the real world. Interns get coffee, interns make copies, interns sit quietly and learn from people who actually know what they're doing." The silence in the room was suffocating. Maya could feel her face getting hot. but she refused to look away from Marcus's contemptuous stare. "I have a degree in business analytics from Columbia University," she said quietly, "and I've spent 3 weeks researching this project. If you just look at the data." Marcus let out a sharp laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Columbia? Really? Let me guess. Diversity admission." He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Look, sweetheart, I'm sure you worked very hard on whatever little project this is, but we have actual professionals handling the automotive account. Why don't you go make yourself useful and grab me a coffee? Grand, 2 sugars. Think you can handle that?" Maya felt something snap inside her chest. She'd dealt with microaggressions before, the surprised looks when she spoke up in class, the assumptions about her intelligence, the subtle ways people tried to make her feel like she didn't belong in spaces she'd earned her way into. But this wasn't subtle. This was blatant, ugly discrimination happening in front of 8 other people, and not one of them was saying a word. "No," she said. Marcus blinked. "Excuse me." "I said no, I'm not getting your coffee. I'm here to present my analysis, which is what I was assigned to do, and I'm not your sweetheart." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus's face flushed red, and when he spoke again, his voice had gone dangerously quiet. "You want to talk about assignments? Let me tell you something, since nobody else apparently has the guts to. I don't know what kind of affirmative action program got you in the door here, but at Prestige we have standards, we have a reputation to maintain, and we don't let interns who don't know their place walk into strategy meetings thinking they're going to teach people with actual experience how to do their jobs." He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You know what your problem is. People like you come into places like this thinking the world owes you something, thinking that a degree, if you even really earned it, means you're automatically qualified to sit at the table with people who have been doing this for years. Well, here's a reality check. You're here to learn, to shut up, and to do what you're told. And if you can't handle that, maybe you should find somewhere else to work." Tom let out an uncomfortable cough. Stephanie was staring at her laptop screen like it might transport her somewhere else. Jennifer started to say something, then stopped. Derek was frozen, his mouth slightly open. Maya stood up too. Her hands were shaking, but her voice came out clear and strong. "People like me. Say what you really mean, Marcus. Go ahead. Tell everyone in this room exactly what you mean by people like me." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I mean people who don't have the experience, the work ethic, or quite frankly, the qualifications to be here. People who check boxes instead of adding value. Is that clear enough for you?" "Crystal clear," Maya said. She picked up her report from the table. "For the record, this analysis contains 3 months of consumer data from 15 different markets, predictive modeling for the next fiscal quarter, and a breakdown of our competitors' positioning strategies that would have saved this company from making the same mistakes they made on Henderson account last year, the account you lost, by the way, that cost the company $2.3 million. Marcus's face went from red to purple. "How dare you?" "I dare because I did the work. I dare because I'm good at what I do. And I dare because, unlike you, I don't need to tear other people down to feel important." She walked toward the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Marcus, you should really be more careful about who you talk to that way. You never know who might be listening, or who they might be connected to." She left the conference room with every eye following her, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. She made it to her cubicle, dropped into her chair, and let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in her lungs for 3 weeks. What Maya didn't see was what happened in the conference room after she left. Marcus stood there, his face still flushed, looking around at his team. Meeting adjourned. He snapped, "And I don't want to hear anyone bringing this up again. Am I understood?" But Jennifer was already on her phone. Because Jennifer, unlike Marcus, had done her homework when Maya Richardson joined the team. Jennifer knew exactly who Maya's father was, and Jennifer knew that Marcus had just made a career-ending mistake. The call came to Marcus's office at 2:15 that afternoon. It was from David Morrison, the company's chief operating officer, requesting his immediate presence on the executive floor, not asking. Requesting. There was a difference, and Marcus knew it. He took the elevator up to the 20th floor with a knot of unease growing in his stomach. Something about the tone of Morrison's assistant had been off. Something about the way Tom had been avoiding eye contact with him all afternoon felt wrong. When he walked into Morrison's office, he found not just the COO, but also Helen Chastain, the company's CEO, and a man he'd never seen before, all in his early 60s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. "Marcus, sit down," Morrison said. His voice was flat, professional, completely devoid of the usual warmth. Marcus sat. The unknown man was watching him with an expression that made his skin crawl. Helen spoke first. "Marcus, we've received a detailed report about what happened in your team meeting this morning. Before we go any further, I want to give you a chance to explain your side of things." Relief flooded through Marcus. An explanation? He could smooth this over. He was good at this. "Helen, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. What happened today was a regrettable miscommunication with one of our interns. She was overstepping her boundaries, and I may have been a bit harsh in redirecting her, but it was necessary to maintain." "Stop," the unknown man said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through Marcus's words like a blade. "Before you dig yourself any deeper, let me introduce myself. My name is Robert Richardson. I founded Prestige Marketing Solutions 32 years ago. I currently serve as chairman of the board, and the intern you called unqualified, the woman you implied got into Columbia through affirmative action, the person you told to get you coffee and accused of not having work ethic, that's my daughter." The blood drained from Marcus's face so fast he felt dizzy. I didn't. She never said." "No, she didn't," Robert continued, his voice still eerily calm. "Because Maya specifically asked me not to tell anyone who she was. She wanted to earn her place here on her own merit without any special treatment. She wanted to be judged on her work, not on her last name, and you know what? You did judge her work. You judged it without even looking at it. Judged her without knowing anything about her except what you saw when she walked into that room." Helen Chastain opened a folder on her desk. "We have statements from 6 people who were in that meeting, Marcus. Would you like me to read them? Because every single one of them corroborates the same story. You belittled her. You questioned her qualifications based on nothing but your own prejudices. You made assumptions about how she got her degree. You called her sweetheart. You told her to get you coffee instead of letting her present work she'd spent weeks preparing. I want you to understand something," Robert said, leaning forward. "I don't interfere with the day-to-day operations of this company. I hired good people to run it, and I trust them to make the right decisions. But when my 23-year-old daughter calls me crying at lunch because a manager at my company treated her like she was worthless, when she tells me she's thinking about quitting because she doesn't know if she can face coming back to an office where someone spoke to her that way, I pay attention." Marcus's mouth had gone completely dry. "Mr. Richardson, I swear I didn't know. That's exactly the problem," Morrison cut in. "You didn't know, and you didn't care to know. You saw a young black woman in your meeting, and you made assumptions. You've been making assumptions about people for years, Marcus. Do you want to know why your department has the highest turnover rate in the company? Why every person of color we've hired into your team has left within 6 months? We thought it was coincidence. We thought maybe we weren't recruiting the right people, but now we know the truth." Helen pulled out another document. "We've spent the afternoon conducting interviews with current and former employees who worked under you. The stories we've heard are disturbing. A pattern of discriminatory behavior, favoritism, hostile work environment, and this morning's incident was just the one that finally came to light." Marcus felt his world collapsing around him. "Please," he said, and his voice came out strangled. "Please, I've worked here for 7 years. I've brought in millions in revenue. I've built that department from the ground up." "You've built a toxic department," Helen corrected. "And as of this moment, you no longer work for Prestige Marketing Solutions." Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Your access has been revoked. You'll receive information about your severance package, which, given the circumstances, is more generous than you deserve. Robert Richardson stood up. Before you go, Marcus, I want you to understand something. My daughter's report, the one you didn't bother to look at, I read it this afternoon. It was exceptional. The kind of work that would impress clients and win accounts. She has more talent and integrity in her little finger than you've shown in your entire career here. She's going to do remarkable things, and she's going to do them at a company that values her, which apparently isn't this one, because if it were, what happened this morning would never have been possible. He walked to the door and opened it. 2 security guards were waiting in the hall. I built this company on the principle that talent, creativity, and hard work matter more than anything else, Robert said. That means everyone gets judged by the same standards. Everyone gets the same opportunity to succeed or fail based on what they bring to the table. You violated that principle in the worst possible way. You're done here. Marcus walked out of that office in a daze. By the time he made it back to his floor, his team was already being informed of the change. Jennifer was being promoted to regional manager. Maya was being moved to a project lead position, reporting directly to Jennifer. And Marcus Webb, who'd been so confident in his own importance just 6 hours earlier, was walking out of Prestige Marketing Solutions for the last time, carrying a cardboard box of personal items and the realization that his arrogance had cost him everything. 3 months later, Maya Richardson stood in a different conference room, presenting her automotive analysis to the actual client. Her recommendations were implemented. The campaign she helped design won an industry award. And she did it all while her last name stayed in the background because she never needed it to prove her worth. She'd earned her seat at the table the same way everyone should, through talent, preparation, and refusing to let anyone make her smaller than she was. As for Marcus, word travels fast in the marketing industry. And when people heard why he'd been fired, the opportunities dried up. Because companies are finally learning that discrimination isn't just wrong, it's bad business. And managers who can't see past their own prejudices don't deserve to lead anyone. Stories like Maya's happen every single day in workplaces around the world. People are underestimated, dismissed, and discriminated against because of how they look rather than what they can do. If you've experienced something similar, drop a comment and share your story. If you're in a position to make change happen in your workplace, use that power. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story today, share it with them. Because sometimes the person you underestimate is exactly the one who will prove you should have known better. And karma doesn't forget. It just waits for the perfect moment to remind you that respect isn't optional, it's essential. Make sure you're subscribed because we're bringing you more stories that matter, more moments that prove integrity always wins in the end, and more reminders that the world is changing, one exposed manager at a time. Let me know in the comments what you think should have happened to Marcus. Was his firing justified, or should the consequences have been different? Your opinion matters, so let's discuss it.